What harmless secret you lied about and now can't tell? I've been secretly eating nutmeg for 7 years, in parked cars, at work, even inside a Starbucks bathroom, because my wife thinks I have a rare genetic condition that makes it taste like sawdust. The truth? I lied on our third date to avoid admitting her romantic pasta tasted like a pumpkin spice candle that died in a grease fire. When my now wife and I first started dating, she made us both a romantic homemade dinner. It was supposed to be this fancy pasta with a lemon cream sauce. Only problem? She accidentally used way too much nutmeg. Like, aggressively too much. It tasted like eating a pumpkin spice candle that had given up on life. I took one bite and nearly gagged. She looked at me with these huge, hopeful eyes and asked, "Is it too much nutmeg?" I think I got heavy-handed. And instead of just saying, "Yeah, babe, it's a bit much," my brain short-circuited. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was nervous. I blurted out, "No, it's perfect. I actually can't taste nutmeg at all. I have a genetic condition where nutmeg is completely flavorless to me. It's like eating sawdust." She gasped, "Really? That's so sad." And I just nodded, like a psychopath. That was 7 years ago. We are now married. We have a 2-year-old daughter. And my wife has spent the better part of a decade passionately defending my fake condition. She tells friends, "Don't put nutmeg in anything for him. He's got that rare thing." She once got into a 20-minute argument with a chef at a fancy restaurant who tried to tell her that nutmeg does have a flavor. She said, "My husband is a medical miracle, actually. She buys me nutmeg-free spice blends online." For our wedding, her sister made me a joke gift basket of safe spices with a card that said, "No nutmeg allowed." Every single holiday, she makes 2 versions of eggnog pie, one with nutmeg for everyone else and one without, just for me. I eat the without version and compliment how creamy it is. I have tasted nutmeg many times in secret, at work, at my parents' house, in the car after buying a chai latte. It tastes warm and slightly sweet and woody. It's fine. I like it, but I can never, ever come clean. Because how do you say, "Hey, remember that random lie I told during our third date? I can actually taste nutmeg perfectly well, and your pasta was disgusting, and I've let you build an entire culinary identity around my fake disability for nearly a decade." She would be devastated, not angry, devastated. She's so proud of how accommodating she's been. She tells people the story like it's a quirky testament to her love. So I will die on this hill, or rather, I will live on it, nutmeg-free, smiling, and full of silent, absurd guilt every time I see a spice rack. Story 2. For 8 years, I have secretly pureed garlic into my wife's cooking while she sleeps. Because on our 3-month anniversary, I panicked and told her I wasn't a garlic person after she served me pasta that needed an exorcism. She now tells people we're a no-garlic couple. I own 3 different sizes of microplanes and a getaway bag in case she ever checks the trash. Early in our relationship, my now wife made me a homemade pasta dinner for our 3-month anniversary. I'm talking flour on the counter, hand-rolled noodles, the whole romantic deal. She plated it, sat down across from me, and said with this nervous smile, "Tell me the truth. Is the sauce too garlicky?" Now, here's the thing. I adore garlic. I would eat raw cloves if society allowed it. But for some reason, maybe because I wanted to sound sophisticated, maybe because I panicked, I looked at that beautiful red sauce and said, actually I'm not a huge garlic person. But this is perfect. You nailed it." Her face lit up. She said, "Oh my God, me neither. I always feel so weird ordering extra garlic bread. Everyone thinks I'm crazy." That was 8 years ago. We've been married for 4 years. We have a dog, a mortgage, and a shared Costco membership. And for 8 years, I have quietly, stealthily, like a goddamn culinary spy, removed every visible garlic clove from every meal she cooks. I mince it so fine she never notices. I volunteer to do the grocery shopping and buy the pre-minced Jared stuff, which she thinks is cute but less authentic, so I can control the dosage. When we eat out, I order the light garlic option or claim I'm testing a new diet. She still believes we are a no-garlic couple. She tells her friends, "We just don't like the heavy stuff. Keeps things romantic." Her mother bought us garlic-infused olive oil once as a joke gift, and I pretended to gag. Story 3. There's a bag of frozen strawberries hiding behind my family's peas right now, and if my husband finds it, our 6-year marriage is over. Not because I'm cheating, because I've been secretly defrosting and eating them over the sink like a feral animal once a month while he's at bowling league. He thinks I have a rare seed allergy. I don't. I just panicked on date 4 and couldn't take it back. We were maybe 4 dates in, sitting at a diner. He ordered a milkshake, strawberry. I made some throwaway comments comment like, "Oh, you're brave. I can't do the seeds. They mess with my stomach." I don't even know why I said it. I was nervous. I wanted to sound interesting, quirky. Instead, I just invented a medical condition. He immediately went, "No way, my cousin has that. Oral allergy syndrome, right?" I nodded like a nodding dog on a dashboard. "Yeah, exactly that. Here's the thing. I love strawberries. I love them sliced on shortcake, blended into smoothies, dipped in chocolate, frozen then thawed, so they get all syrupy." But from that moment on, I became the girl who cannot do strawberries. For the first year, it was fine. I just avoid them. But then he got thoughtful. He started checking ingredient labels. He bought me a strawberry-free cookbook for my birthday. He called restaurants ahead to ask if their salads had strawberry vinaigrette. Last summer, we went to a pick-your-own-berry farm, and he deliberately drove past the strawberry field to the blueberry patch, saying, "I don't want you to feel left out." I almost cried, not from gratitude, from guilt. We've been married 6 years now. I have a secret strawberry stash in the garage freezer behind a bag of frozen peas. Once a month, when he's at his late bowling league, I defrost 3 or 4, eat them over the sink like a gremlin, then scrub my teeth, wash my face, and spray air freshener. I've gotten so good at hiding the evidence that I genuinely believe I could testify in court about it. The lie has grown tentacles. His mom sends me strawberry-free jam for Christmas. Our friends know me as the strawberry-sensitive one. Last week, our 5-year-old nephew offered me a strawberry gummy, and my husband gently said, "Remember, Annie can't have those." The kid looked at me with such pity. I keep waiting for the right moment to say, "Hey, so, funny story, I actually love strawberries." But that moment would have to come with a full PowerPoint presentation, a written apology, and probably a marriage counselor on speed dial. So instead, I'll just keep eating my stolen berries in the dark like some kind of fruity criminal. Harmless? Mostly. Pathetic? Absolutely. Story 4. I have secretly wanted to huff gasoline fumes for 7 years like a feral raccoon at a construction site, but I can't because my wife thinks the smell triggers debilitating migraines that I completely invented on a random Tuesday when I was too tired to pump my own gas. She calls me her sensitive prince. I once stood at a pump for 30 seconds just breathing through my mouth, crying on the inside, while she ran inside for Doritos. I was exhausted, dead tired, and she asked again. Instead of just saying, "Not tonight," my brain short-circuited. I rubbed my forehead and said, "Honestly, I can't stand the fumes. They trigger migraines." My dad was the same way. She immediately got concerned. "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I've been making you suffer." And just like that, poof, I was free. No more standing in the cold. No more smelling like a mechanic. She started pumping her own gas without a second thought. Sometimes she'd even roll down my window afterward and say, "Give it a minute. Let the air clear." That was 7 years ago. We're married now. We have 2 kids. Here's the lie. I love the smell of gasoline. Always have. It smells like road trips and summer in my grandfather's old garage. When I was a kid, I'd beg my dad to let me hold the nozzle. The fumes are genuinely pleasant to me, but I cannot ever go back. Last year, we were on a road trip. She went inside to grab snacks, and the tank was almost empty. I stood there for a full 30 seconds staring at the pump like a man watching his ex-wife walk past. I didn't do it. I waited. She came back out, pumped the gas herself, and said, "You're so lucky I love you, you sensitive prince." I smiled. Inside, I was screaming. Story 5. I have watched 14 hours of YouTube tutorials on bow technique and rosin brands, so I can fake a conversation about an instrument I have never touched because 9 years ago, I panicked and told my music major wife I played cello. She now wants to take me to a luthier's workshop in Italy to watch them carve F-holes. I have never held a cello. I don't know what an F-hole is. And last week, I Googled how to pretend to faint convincingly just in case she buys me tickets backstage. She was a music major, voice specifically. When she asked if I played anything, my brain went completely blank. I panicked. I said cello because it was the first instrument that wasn't a guitar or piano. She got so excited. She started talking about Bach suites and Yo-Yo Ma and asked what pieces I performed. I nodded and said vague things like the usual stuff and solo ensemble competitions. That was 9 years ago. She bought me a cello-themed coffee mug for our first Christmas together. I smiled and said thank you like I deserved it. She asked me to play for her once, early on, and I said I was too rusty and emotionally not ready to revisit that part of my life. She respected that. She still respects it. Her father played cello in a community orchestra. At our wedding, he gave a toast about how the cello brought 2 families together because I understood the soul of the instrument. I shook his hand and said thank you, sir, with a straight face. The worst moment? 3 years ago, she found an old photo album from her college days. There was a picture of her with her chamber group for people holding cellos. She pointed at the cellist and said, "That was Marcus ruckus. You two would have loved talking shop. I said, yeah, probably, and changed the subject to dessert. I have since watched approximately 14 hours of YouTube tutorials on cello technique. Not to learn, just to sound believable if she ever asks a specific question. I know what a spiccato bow stroke is. I know the difference between a full-size and 3/4 cello. I could probably fake a 30-second conversation about rosin brands, but I cannot ever play. I cannot ever be in a room with an actual cello. If she ever surprises me with tickets to a concert and backstage passes, I will have to pretend to faint. She told me last week that her dream vacation is visiting a luthier's workshop in Cremona, Italy. She said, "You'd love seeing how they hand-carve the F-holes." I said, absolutely. Let's start saving now. So that's my secret. I am a fraud. A gentle, well-intentioned, cello-shaped fraud. And the worst part? I've started to genuinely love classical music. I listen to Yo-Yo Ma in the car alone, but I can never tell her why. Harmless? Mostly. Absurd? Completely. But I've built this little wooden lie for nearly a decade, and at this point, the truth would be more confusing than the fiction. I'm taking the cello lie to my grave, or at least until she buys me one for our 10th anniversary. Then we'll see if I can learn Twinkle Twinkle in one night. Story 7. For 7 years, my husband has watched me walk into our bedroom with a fitted sheet and emerge minutes later with a perfect flat rectangle, and he thinks I'm a witch. The truth? I close the door, mute YouTube tutorials, and wrestle those elastic corners like I'm trying to sedate a rabid octopus. I have never successfully folded a fitted sheet in my life. The first time, I got lucky. Now I'm in too deep, and honestly, I'd rather confess to an affair than admit I've been faking domestic witchcraft for almost a decade. Early in our relationship, maybe 4 months in, he was struggling with a fitted sheet on his bed. He held up this crumpled elastic monster and said, "I swear no human actually knows how to fold these things." And instead of laughing and agreeing like a normal person, I grabbed it from his hands, made a few aggressive folds, tucked the corners into each other, and produced a flattish rectangle. He stared at me like I had performed magic. "Holy shit," he said. "You're a witch." Here's the truth. I had no idea what I was doing. I just moved fabric around aggressively and got lucky. The fold fell apart the second he turned his back, but I saw the admiration in his eyes, and I couldn't let it go. I'll take a quick break here to remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the story, and tell us if something like this has ever happened to you. So I nodded and said, yeah, my mom taught me when I was a kid. It's just muscle memory at this point. That was the lie. For 7 years now, he has brought me every fitted sheet in our house. He hands it to me with this trusting, loving look. I take it to the bedroom, close the door, and then spend anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes wrestling with elastic corners like I'm trying to tame a wild animal. I watch YouTube tutorials on mute. I have tried every method. I still cannot do it consistently. When I finally emerge with a folded sheet, he says, "Show off," and kisses my forehead. Story 8. My wife has spent 7 years lovingly whispering to waiters, labeling our electrical cords, and buying me braille-textured socks because she thinks I'm red-green colorblind. The truth? I have perfect 2015's vision. I once watched a sunset that looked like a Bob Ross painting exploded in joy and had to describe it as kinda gray-orange to keep the lie alive. My brother mocks me by holding up red objects in front of my own children. And last Christmas, I pretended not to notice that her gift wrap was literally fire engine crimson. My wife thinks I'm a little bit colorblind, specifically red-green. She figured it out about 3 months into dating. We were at a garden center picking out mums for her porch, and she held up 2 pots, one deep burgundy, one forest green, and asked which I liked better. I genuinely hesitated for a second because the light was weird, late afternoon, kind of golden, and she gasped and went, "Oh my God, you can't tell them apart, can you?" And I just nodded. I don't know why. I think I panicked. She looked so tender about it, like she'd just unlocked a secret level of intimacy. From that day forward, she became my hero. She reorganized our closet by texture tags. She labels the red and green wires on every device with little stickers. She whispers to waiters, "Could you describe the dish's colors, please?" Last Christmas, she bought me a set of socks with braille-like bumps on the red ones. Here's the truth. I have perfect vision. 2015's. I see every crimson, every emerald, every maroon, and sage like a high-definition painting. I tried to come clean once about year 2. I said, "Hey, you know how I sometimes say the sunset looks kinda gray-orange?" She immediately started crying happy tears because she thought I was sharing a vulnerable moment about my disability. I couldn't do it. I hugged her and said, "It's fine. It's not a big deal. We've been married for years now." She bought me colorblind-friendly luggage. My brother thinks it's the funniest thing on earth and will randomly hold up something red and go, "What color is Daddy's coffee mug, sweetie?" in front of her, and she shushes him protectively. Story 10. I have spent 8 years smiling through possession films, gore fests, and haunted doll movies while internally dissolving into a puddle of pure terror. Because on our third date, I panicked and nodded instead of admitting I hate horror. My husband now buys me VIP tickets to horror conventions. I have met a zombie actor and taken a smiling photo with him. I haven't slept through the night since 2017. Last Friday, he put on a movie about a demonic nun, and I literally saw my life flash before my eyes during the opening credits. Okay, so my husband thinks I'm obsessed with scary movies. Like, genuinely obsessed. Early in our relationship, he took me to see some horror film on our third date. I think it was about a haunted doll or something. I barely remember. I got startled exactly once during a jump scare, and he laughed and said, "Oh wow, you're one of those people who actually reacts. That's adorable." And instead of saying, "I actually hate horror movies. They give me nightmares for weeks," I just nodded. Then he asked if I wanted to see another one next weekend. I said yes, because he looked so excited. That was 8 years ago. Here's the secret. I have not enjoyed a single horror movie we've watched together. Not one. Every Friday night, he queues up the most disturbing, gut-churning stuff he can find. Possession films, gore fests, psychological thrillers, and I sit there with a blanket over my lap, smiling through my internal terror, while he occasionally glances over to see if I'm having fun. And I fake a little nervous laugh and say, "Ooh, that was creepy." He has built an entire identity around this. For my birthday last year, he got us VIP tickets to a horror convention. I met an actor who played a zombie. I got a photo. I looked thrilled. I was screaming inside. Story 11. I once won a drunken lake race against people wearing flip-flops, and now my wife thinks I was state ranked and nearly went to Olympic trials. She calls me Phelps. Her dad calls me Phelps. I have never done a flip turn in my life. Last week, she bought me a waterproof MP3 player for training, and I've been wearing it in the shower just to keep up the lie. I'm honestly ashamed of myself. My wife thinks I'm a former competitive swimmer. Like, practiced at dawn, shaved my legs for regionals, still have a lap time in my head kind of swimmer. She brings it up at parties. She tells people I could have gone to trials if not for a shoulder injury. I have never corrected her. Here's what happened. Early in dating, maybe our 6th or 7th time hanging out, we were at a lake with her friends. Someone asked if anyone wanted to race to the dock. I said sure. I won. Not because I'm fast, because everyone else was drunk and wearing flip-flops. But her friend yelled, "Were you a swimmer or something?" And my now wife looked at me with this sparkle, like she'd just discovered something impressive about me. I said, "Yeah, in high school. A little." That was the lie. A little meant I took a summer lessons class when I was 12 and got a participation ribbon. I cannot do a flip turn. I have never worn a tech suit. I don't know what an IM is. But she ran with it. She told her parents I was state ranked. Her dad started calling me Phelps. She bought me a waterproof MP3 player for my birthday for training. I just said thank you. Then she surprised me with a swim date at an Olympic-sized pool near her apartment. She wanted to do laps together. I had to pretend my shoulder was acting up and sat on the bench while she swam. She was an actual high school swimmer. She did butterfly. I clapped. Story 12. I have secretly been waking up at 4 a.m. for 5 years to carry a 50-pound dog onto my husband's chest, so he thinks our pet is naturally obsessed with him. He cried actual tears and thanked the universe for his canine soulmate. I hide treats in his pockets before work. I taught the dog that daddy's home means a 5-treat jackpot. And yesterday, he sent me a photo from his office that said, "Bet he's missing me right now." I sent back heart emojis and felt nothing but the cold, quiet power of a woman who rigged an entire living creature's loyalty. My husband thinks our dog is just naturally obsessed with him. Like, unnaturally obsessed. The dog sleeps on his side of the bed. The dog follows him from room to room. The dog whines at the front door for a full 10 minutes after he leaves for work every morning. My husband tells everyone, "I don't know what I did to deserve this little guy. He just picked me." Here's the truth. I trained him to do all of that. On purpose. And I've been lying about it for 5 years. Early in our relationship, maybe a month after we adopted the dog together, I noticed something. My husband had this quiet insecurity that our dog liked me more. And honestly, back then, the dog did like me more. I did all the feedings. I did the walks. I was the treat person. My husband worked longer hours, and the dog barely acknowledged him. So I started a campaign. I hid treats in my husband's pockets before he came home. I fed the dog dinner only after my husband gave the command. I would literally wake up at 4 a.m., carry the dog onto my husband's chest, and go back to bed so the dog would be there when he opened his eyes. I taught the dog that daddy's home meant a jackpot of 5 high-value treats in a row. It worked. Within 3 months, the dog was glued to him. My husband cried once, actual tears, and said, "I finally feel like he loves me." I have never told him. Not once. He still thinks it's just natural canine devotion. He thinks he's the dog whisperer. He sends me photos from work with captions like, "Bet he's missing me right now," and I just write back heart emojis. The dog is currently asleep on his lap as I type this. My husband is smiling down at him like he won a lottery he doesn't know I bought the ticket for. Story 13. I didn't cry at our show's finale. finale. A rogue popcorn kernel lodged in my sinus during cedar fever season did. But my wife saw one watery eye and a half sneeze, sobbed, "This is why I'm marrying you," and bought me a mug that says "Real men cry at series finales." 3 years later, she still tells everyone I'm emotionally intelligent. I've never told her the truth. I can't. She framed that mug and hung it in our kitchen. I cried during the finale of our favorite TV show. Like, full-on teary-eyed, sniffled into a napkin. Had to pause the episode to compose myself. She brings it up constantly. She tells her friends I'm emotionally intelligent because of it. She bought me a mug that says "Real men cry at series finales." Here's the truth. I wasn't crying. I had seasonal allergies, and a piece of popcorn kernel lodged in my sinus. Let me explain. 3 years ago, we were binge-watching the last season of a show she adored. I liked it fine. She was obsessed. The finale came on. I'd been fighting cedar fever for 2 days. Eyes watery, nose running, the whole miserable package. During the final scene, a character died heroically, and my wife glanced over just as a rogue piece of popcorn I'd inhaled earlier triggered a massive eye-watering sneeze that didn't fully come out. My eyes welled up. A single tear rolled down my cheek. She gasped, "Oh my God, you're crying." I opened my mouth to say, "No, it's cedar and a kernel," but she was already sobbing and hugging me and saying, "This is why I'm marrying you." So I shut my mouth, and I hugged her back, and I let her believe. Story 14. There's a $12 street market painting hanging in my living room that my partner believes is a priceless family heirloom from my aunt's estate. I bought it alone, hung it myself, and then nodded when they gasped. "You found your aunt's painting?" That was 4 years ago. Now guests are told it has sentimental value. My partner once called it the most meaningful thing in our home. The truth? I don't even have an aunt. Back when my partner and I first moved in together, we were both broke and trying to make our apartment feel grown up without actually having any money. One day we were walking past a street market, and there was this framed painting, nothing famous, just a nice landscape with soft colors. I stopped for like 2 seconds to look at it, and the vendor immediately went into full sales mode. I panicked. My partner asked if I liked it, and instead of just saying, "Yeah, it's nice," I randomly said, "Oh, it actually reminds me of something my aunt used to have." No idea why I said that. It just came out. We didn't buy it. A week later, I went back alone and got it anyway because I genuinely liked it and it was cheap. When I brought it home, my partner got this huge smile and went, "Wait, you found your aunt's painting?" And instead of correcting it, I just nodded. That's it. That was the moment I should have fixed it. A simple, "No, I just liked it." Done. Normal. End of story. But I didn't. Over time, it turned into this weirdly wholesome thing for them. They tell guests, "That painting has sentimental value. It's connected to their family." My partner even once said it was their favorite thing in the apartment because it had a story behind it. Story 15. My partner has a box full of handwritten notes I've left over 3 years. Different handwriting styles, hidden in phone cases, slipped into pockets while they sleep. They think I've always been this thoughtful, note-leaving romantic. The truth? I scribbled one sticky note to seem impressive, panicked when they asked if it was a habit, and said, "Yeah, I've always done this." Now I wake up at 2 a.m. to write fake love letters so they don't find out the box is built on a lie I told on month 2. Very early in our relationship, my partner casually mentioned loving handwritten notes, like little thoughtful messages hidden in random places. At the time, I thought, easy win. Romantic, low effort, memorable. So one morning before work, I scribbled a short note on a sticky pad. Nothing deep, just something like, "Hope your day goes well," with a small doodle. I stuck it inside their bag and forgot about it. That evening, they came home absolutely glowing, like way more emotional than I expected. They kept rereading it, smiling, saying no one had ever done something like that for them before. And here's where I messed up. I'll take a quick break here to remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the story, and tell us if something like this has ever happened to you. They asked how long I'd been doing that kind of thing, like if it was a habit of mine. Without thinking, I said, "Yeah, I've always liked leaving little notes for people." That was a lie, a completely unnecessary, tiny lie. But it changed everything, because now it wasn't just a one-time sweet gesture. It became my thing. They started expecting it, not in a demanding way, but in that hopeful, excited way that makes it impossible to disappoint them. So I kept doing it. At first it was manageable. A note here, a note there. Then it escalated. I had to get creative. Different handwriting styles, new hiding spots, more meaningful messages so it didn't feel repetitive. There were nights I'd be half asleep, realizing I hadn't left a note that day, and I'd get up just to slip one into a jacket pocket or under a phone case. It's been 3 years. They have a box, an actual box where they keep every single note I've ever written. Sometimes they go through it when they're having a bad day. I've walked in on them doing that more than once, and and every time I feel this weird mix of guilt and, I guess, pride, because the feelings behind the notes are real now. I do mean what I write. It's just that the origin story, that I've always been this thoughtful, note-leaving person, is completely made up. At this point, telling the truth would feel like undoing something that genuinely makes them happy. So I just keep writing. Story 16. I once lied so hard about falling asleep to screaming monkeys that my boyfriend now thinks I'm a Zen rainforest goddess, and I've secretly hated every single chirping frog for 8 months. This is going to sound ridiculous, but here we are. At the very beginning of our relationship, during one of those early getting-to-know-you conversations, he asked me what kind of music I like to fall asleep to. I panicked, not because I have weird taste, because I don't. I usually just sleep in silence like a normal person. But for some reason, my brain decided this was the moment to be interesting. So I blurted out that I love falling asleep to ambient rainforest sounds, not just casual background noise. No, I went all in. I said it relaxes me, helps me disconnect, makes me feel grounded. I don't know who that person was, but she was confident. He lit up like I just revealed the key to my soul. That very night, he queued up hours of chirping frogs, distant thunder, and dripping leaves. He looked so proud. I didn't have the heart to tell him I'd just invented that whole personality trait 12 hours earlier. So I smiled, closed my eyes, listened to imaginary monkeys scream for 3 hours, and that's how it started. Fast forward months. He now curates my sleep experience. Different rainforest tracks depending on my mood. Storm-heavy ones if I've had a rough day. Softer jungle ambience if I'm overstimulated. He even bought a better speaker because you deserve the full immersion. Story 17. I have eaten my wife's special pancakes every single weekend for years. Dense, crumbly, orange-flavored monstrosities that 2 friends separately pulled me aside to ask, dude, what was that? All because I panicked on a Sunday morning and said, wow, these are really good, instead of telling the truth. She thinks it's our tradition. If we skip a week, she gets disappointed. Last month, I made normal pancakes while she was gone, and she called them kind of plain. I nodded. I always nod. I will nod until I die. When we first started dating, she invited me over one Sunday morning and said she was going to make her special pancakes. She was so excited about it that I didn't even think twice. I love pancakes, so how bad could it be? Then I watched her cook. She didn't measure anything. She mixed random flours together for texture, added way more baking powder than I thought was normal, and threw in a bunch of ingredients that I never would have associated with pancakes. At one point, she added orange zest and a splash of something I'm still not sure about. I remember thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. We sat down to eat, and the first bite completely caught me off guard. The texture was weirdly dense, but also crumbly, and the flavor was this strange mix of sweet, bitter, and citrus that just didn't work for me at all. But she was staring at me, smiling, waiting for my reaction. And I panicked. I said, wow, these are really good. That was it. That one sentence. She lit up like I had just given her the best compliment in the world. She told me no one had ever appreciated her pancakes like that before. So I kept eating them, slowly, painfully, smiling the whole time. Fast forward years later, those pancakes have become our thing. Every weekend she insists on making them because it's tradition now. If we skip it, she actually gets a little disappointed. It gets worse. One time she was out of town, and I made pancakes for myself the normal way. When she came back, she tried them and said something like, these are okay, but they're kind of plain. I guess I'm just used to mine. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just nodded and agreed. Another time, we had friends over for brunch, and she made a huge batch. Everyone was polite, ate them, said nice things. Later, 2 of them pulled me aside separately and were like, dude, what was that? That was the moment I realized it's not just me. But now, it's way too late. Story 18. I've been lying to the woman I love every single morning for 2 years. Not about another woman, not about money, but about the fact that I'm secretly a walking zombie who needs a chemical kickstart just to fake being a morning person. And yesterday, my alarm didn't go off. At the very beginning of our relationship, we had one of those casual conversations where you try to seem like you have your life together. You know the kind. Favorite foods, hobbies, routines, all that. She mentioned she admired morning people. Without thinking, I immediately said, oh yeah, I'm up at 6 every day. I love mornings. That was a complete lie. I've always been the opposite. Left to myself, I'd stay up late and struggle to wake up before 10. But I didn't want to come across as lazy or unmotivated, so I just invented a better version of myself on the spot. At first, it was easy to maintain. We didn't live together, so she never saw my actual routine. If she texted me early, I'd just reply a bit later and say I'd already been up for a while. When we had plans, I'd drag myself out of bed and act like it was totally normal. Then things got serious. We moved in together, and suddenly my personality trait became something I had to perform daily. So I adjusted my entire life around it. It's that I depend on strong energy supplements to even make it believable. Not anything illegal or extreme, just something I take every single morning to kickstart my brain and keep me from crashing before noon. I never told her because I didn't want to ruin the image I'd accidentally created. Over time, she started building things around it. Morning walks together, early grocery runs, weekend plans that start at sunrise because we're both early birds, and I go along with it. There have been moments where I almost admitted it, like when I overslept once and she joked, "Wow, I've never seen you like this." I nearly said, "Yeah, this is actually the real me," but I stopped myself. Story 19. I've spent 3 years pretending to love a podcast I've never actually heard. And last week, she asked me to be a guest on their live show with her. Because she told the hosts I'm their biggest fan early on, she asked if I'd ever heard of this podcast she loved. I hadn't, not even once. But instead of just saying no, I said, "Yeah, I've caught a few episodes. It's really interesting." That one sentence locked me in. Her entire face lit up. She got excited in that way people do when they think they've found someone who shares something meaningful with them. She immediately started referencing episodes, inside jokes, specific hosts, and I just nodded along, trying to piece things together in real time. I figured I'd just listen to it later and catch up. I never did. But the conversation didn't go away. It became a recurring thing. She'd bring it up during car rides, at dinner, while we were just relaxing. She'd ask, "Did you hear the latest one?" And I'd respond with something vague like, "Not yet, but I saw people talking about it," which wasn't technically a lie. I had seen people talking about it, just not because I followed it, because I started quietly looking it up so I wouldn't sound completely lost. Over time, I built this whole system. I'd skim summaries, read comments, pick up keywords, memorize a couple of names, just enough to react appropriately when she talked about it, laugh at the right moments, ask questions that sounded like I knew the context. And she loved it. She started sending me clips, articles, updates. She'd say things like, "I'm so glad you get this stuff. Most people don't." Meanwhile, I was basically assembling a puzzle out of fragments, hoping it made sense. There were close calls. Once she asked me what my favorite episode was. I panicked and named one I'd seen mentioned a lot online. She got excited and started discussing it in detail, and I had to steer the conversation into general territory just to survive it. Another time, she suggested we listen together on a long drive. I immediately said I wasn't in the mood for podcasts and put on music instead. She didn't question it, but I knew I'd dodged something. Now it's been years. It's become our thing, or at least she thinks it is. She talks about it like it's something we share, something we both enjoy and connect over. And the truth is, I don't even know if I'd like it. At this point, admitting it feels ridiculous. "Hey, so remember when I said I listened to your favorite podcast? Yeah, I've actually just been pretending this whole time." It's such a small lie, completely harmless, but it shaped this whole dynamic where she feels understood in something she cares about. So I keep up the act. Story 20. I let my partner beat me at a card game once to be nice, and now, 3 years later, they still introduce me as the person they destroyed so badly I never stood a chance, and I've faked 5 more losses just to protect the first lie. We were hanging out with a few friends, and someone suggested we play a competitive card game. I've played it for years. I'm not amazing, but I definitely know what I'm doing. They, on the other hand, had never played before. At first, I was just helping them understand the rules, explaining moves, giving little tips. It was supposed to be casual, but somewhere along the way, it turned into a one-on-one round between just us. And I noticed something. They were getting really into it, but also a little frustrated whenever they made a mistake. Not in a dramatic way, just that quiet kind of disappointment where you can tell they don't like feeling behind. So I made a quick decision. I started playing worse. Nothing obvious. I didn't throw the game or make ridiculous moves. I just held back a little, missed opportunities, let things slide that I normally wouldn't. And in the end, they won. Not by a huge margin, just enough to feel earned. The reaction was immediate. They lit up, smiling, laughing, saying, "No way, I actually won." Everyone else cheered it on, and I just went along with it. I told them they played really well, which, to be fair, they did for a first time. But I didn't tell them the full truth. I thought it would just be a one-time thing. A small boost of confidence, nothing more. Except it stuck. That game became a story we revisit all the time. It's the moment they realized they were surprisingly good at games. The story they tell friends when the topic comes up. They even bring it up jokingly whenever we play anything now, like, "Careful, I've already beaten you once." And here's the thing. Since then, they've actually improved a lot. Now when we play, it's genuinely competitive. But that first win, the one that started it all, not real. There have been moments where I almost said something, usually when they're teasing me about it. But every time, I stop myself. Because what am I supposed to say? "Hey, that victory you were really proud of," and still bring up years later? Yeah, I adjusted things a bit. It would sound worse than it is. So instead, I just let the story exist the way they remember it. I'll take a quick break here to remind you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the story, and tell us if something like this has ever happened to you. Story 21. I pretended to hate my partner's favorite music just to seem cool, and now I secretly have a 40-hour playlist, go to underground shows alone, and own band merch I hide in my closet like it's a crime scene. They were super into this one genre I had never really paid attention to. Not my usual thing at all. When they asked what I thought about it, I didn't want to come off as dismissive, so I said something like, "It's alright, not really my style, but I can vibe with it." That was the truth at the time. So whenever they played it, I'd just casually nod along, maybe tap my foot, nothing too enthusiastic. I figured it was just one of those their thing situations. But then something unexpected happened. The more I heard it, the more it grew on me. At first, it was just one song stuck in my head, then another. Then I found myself looking up playlists on my own, just out of curiosity. And now, I listen to it all the time. Like, a lot. On my commute, while working, even when they're not around. I've gone down full rabbit holes, learning artists, recognizing tracks within seconds, even having favorites I've never mentioned. But here's the problem. They still think I'm just being supportive when I sit and listen with them. So when they put something on, I have to act like I'm mildly interested instead of genuinely excited. I can't suddenly start naming songs or getting hyped without raising questions like, "Wait, since when do you know all this?" There have been so many almost slip moments. Once, a new album dropped and they were telling me about it. I had already listened to the entire thing earlier that day. I had opinions, favorite tracks, everything. But I had to act like I was hearing about it for the first time. Another time, I accidentally started singing along to a song they didn't even realize I knew. I had to play it off like I'd just picked it up from hearing it around them. At this point, it's ridiculous. What started as me being polite turned into a full-blown hidden interest. And now I'm stuck pretending I'm just going along with it, when in reality, I'm probably the bigger fan. I've thought about telling them, but it feels weirdly awkward now. Hey, so remember how I said your music wasn't really my thing? Yeah, I've actually been low-key obsessed with it for a while. It's harmless. Completely harmless. Story 22. For 3 years, my girlfriend has believed I drive 30 minutes to a hidden wildflower meadow to pick her romantic bouquets. The truth is, I've been collecting weeds from a gas station ditch, a crumbling construction fence, and once from a literal graveyard. And last week, she asked me to take her there. So when my girlfriend and I first started dating, she told me she loved those little wildflowers that randomly grow along roadsides. She said they felt more authentic than store-bought flowers. I, trying to impress her and also being broke at the time, told her I knew a special spot where the best ones grew. There was no special spot. The first time I picked them, it was literally just a patch behind a grocery store parking lot. Nothing magical, just weeds pretending to be flowers. But when I gave them to her, she lit up like I had just handed her something priceless. She asked where I found them, and without thinking, I doubled down on the lie. I described this peaceful hidden place outside the city with tall grass and nobody around. From that point on, it became our thing. Every few weeks, I'd go out there and bring back a small bundle. She started calling them our flowers. She even told her friends about this quiet place I go to just to pick something for her. Here's the problem. I never once went anywhere special. It's always been random patches, behind buildings, near sidewalks, once even from a construction site edge. Don't judge me. They were just sitting there. Fast forward 3 years. She still believes in this peaceful hidden field. She says it's romantic that I make the trip just to get them. Sometimes she thanks me like I'm doing something way bigger than I actually am. The truth? Half the time I grab them on the way home from work in under 2 minutes. And now I'm stuck. Because if I tell her, it ruins this whole sweet idea she's built in her head. But if I don't, I'm basically maintaining a completely unnecessary lie about imaginary geography. The worst part is, last week she said, "One day you have to take me there." I laughed it off. I have no idea how long I can keep this going before I either A, invent an entire fake nature spot, or B, admit this special field is basically a rotation of urban weeds. Either way, yeah, that's mine. Story 23. For 4 years, my girlfriend has believed I can't connect a printer without her help. While downstairs, my teenage son and I have secretly built a home automation system so advanced it texts me when the washer finishes. And last week she asked if I wanted her to show me how to restart the router. It started years ago when we first moved in together. I accidentally acted clueless while she was fixing a Wi-Fi issue, mostly because I was tired and didn't feel like getting involved. She just sort of took over everything digital in the house from that point on. Phones, laptops, smart TV, passwords, apps. She assumed I was basically helpless. And I let that assumption live. The reality is very different. My teenage son and I actually built a small after-hours project space in the basement. Nothing dramatic or illegal or anything like that. Just a hobby lab we slowly turned into a pretty advanced little setup over time. Coding projects, small robotics builds, automation tools, even helping a few neighbors set up basic smart home systems problems when they're stuck. We don't hide it out of shame. It just started as let's not confuse things and somehow became a long-running misunderstanding. At home, I still play the role of someone who struggles to even connect a printer. Meanwhile, my son will casually debug something on a Raspberry Pi while I'm waiting for instructions upstairs. The funny part is, my partner often says things like, "Good thing I handle all the tech stuff in this house. You'd be lost without me." And I just agree. Because if I correct her now, I'd have to explain how long we've been quietly running this whole parallel setup without her realizing it wasn't needed. Even worse, she'd definitely want to get involved. And honestly, this has kind of become our thing. Me and my son figuring things out together in secret while maintaining the world's most unnecessary performance upstairs. She thinks we'd be helpless without her. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments and let us know which one was your favorite.